Hey guys, hey magic makers, welcome. I hope you all are doing well this Thursday evening. So you guys voted in the poll, and overwhelmingly, most everyone wanted to know tips and tricks on how to get started with a witchcraft practice. So, if you're hopping on, keep in mind I'm a couple of seconds ahead of you, so I won't see comments for a little bit, but I'm going to try and keep track of comments through my phone and things like that. So say hi, let me know you're here. If you have any questions as we're going along, definitely drop that in a comment as well, and we can, me and all of me, can answer what I see and what comes up. And so tonight we're going to talk about getting started with witchcraft, but I have so many notes here written down that, this is probably going to turn into a multi-part series. So we'll try and make this as intro as possible, and if you guys are interested, we can deep dive into some of the other things. So again, let me know when you're here, and we're gonna get started in just another minute or two. We decided to use the fancy goblet tonight. Big, red, and shiny. I got this from going to medieval times one time when I was like 14, and that doesn't seem so long ago until I realized it was more than half of my life ago. So, there's that for you. Give you some kind of idea about how old I am. So, I kind of make this assumption that if you're here, you know what a witchcraft practice is, and so just in case you don't know, witchcraft is a personal spiritual practice. It can be religious, but it's not necessarily religious. I teach and I fully believe that you can do a witchcraft practice without needing any sort of specific religion, dogma, or anything like that. But witchcraft is really a belief in energy. You believe that you have energy, you believe that the world around you has energy, that you can affect and interact with that. And so sometimes that's a little hard to wrestle with, and you can say, yeah, everything has energy, but it's hard to remember on a day-to-day basis that your car's got energy, your computer's got energy, you've got, the trees in your backyard have their own set of energy and things like that. So knowing that everything has energy, including yourself, you become more aware of the world around you, how you're interacting with it, how they are interacting with you, and things like that. But if you're here, you've probably read a whole bunch of things. You've probably read a whole bunch of things. You've read a bunch of different books. You have probably taken in a lot of information at this point, and now it's like, okay, I know the things. How do I actually do it day to day? And so a couple of things that really jumpstart a witchcraft practice is personal power connection. Blah, 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 blah. It's personal power connection. And what I mean by that is, if you understand the world has energy, you really start to get in touch with your own energy. And that can be done through meditation. It can be done through body movement, like ecstatic dance or just taking a walk. It comes from these 6 sense exercises that I have in my back pocket. But when you're connected to your own personal power, that's when you can start to really affect the world around you. So 6 sense exercises, it's going to be things like when you pull up to a red light, you say in your head and will the red light to turn green. Now, yes, the red light's going to turn green eventually, but, can you get down timing like that? It's going to work or a hotel or something, pressing the button to go in the elevator, and then asking yourself, I wonder if a person's on the elevator and going to get off right as I get on. And that seems kind of silly, but it's exercising that subconscious, intuitive part of you that lets you start sensing those things. It's it's so subtle, but it's a subtle way of letting your energy kind of feel out into the world around you and get feedback from that. And that connection is what really builds into energy work, spellcraft practices, and things like that. So first things first, personal power connection. You know, I have balked at meditation for the longest time, mostly because I think I learned funky, or I learned meditation back in the day when meditation was only think no thoughts, just breathe, think no thoughts. And I've got this brain that's like, hi, 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 and all over the place sometimes. So it's like, clear and empty your mind didn't really work for me. I do meditation in other ways now that really work for me. You know, another way of getting a witchcraft practice started is going to be recognizing magic and patterns around you. So magic comes in all forms. Spellcraft, energy work comes in all forms. You've probably heard all the different kinds of green magic, herbal magic, kitchen, knot work, spell jars, poppets. You've heard with working with animals, you've heard shamanism, you've heard all these things. And those things can be overwhelming. So when you get to recognizing magic and patterns, it's really about picking your thing to study and then being observant about the world around you. When I say the world around you, it's really your immediate sphere of what I'm talking about. It's things at home, it's things at work, it's interpersonal relationships. I want you to find a thing that you're interested in and study it. 2 weeks, maybe a month. Like, you don't have to study for years. You don't have to study a year and a day on this one specific thing, because, you know, our interests wax and wane with our intuition and what we're called to. So, you know, find your thing and then write bullet points out about it. So if you're really interested in crystals right now, go read something on crystals today and write down 3 things you learned about it. And then do that once or twice a week and keep going. And, you know, that lets you, 1, build a book of shadows and grimoire, but 2, it allows you a chance to look back and see any of the patterns that you're going through in your life, because magic's going to take on patterns. You're going to find what you're good at, what you like to do by looking at those patterns. And being in tune with cycles. So that plays back into the personal power connection, where your energy is going to go through a bit of a cycle. It's just kind of how nature works out. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have times where you're interested over here and then you come back over here. I know, this is kind of telling, I know my husband is coming up on the time where he really likes to do spirit work, because in our part of the world, it will be Samhain soon. So that he starts getting into ancestor and spirit work when that time of year comes up. But, you know, if you haven't looked at your pattern, if you don't know your pattern, it can be really useful to figure out what those things are. And so that's just writing 1 or 2 bullet points down. You don't have to write pages. You don't have to write a novel on it. It's just things that catch your interest. You just write a couple of things down about it. My day today, the Texas sage bush caught my attention again. I've been wanting to do a clipping and plant some for myself. So I know, at least energetically, I'm being called to do that. And that would be something that I would write down, okay? During August, during this moon phase, during these things, kind of interested over here. And I mentioned earlier that witchcraft is a personal spiritual practice. And so what that also means is finding out what is sacred to you. And that sounds so odd to say, but let's kind of unpack this a little bit. Find out what's sacred to you. Is it respecting nature and going for eco-living? If that is something that is sacred to you, dive into that, feel into that, create a practice around that. If having your morning coffee or tea and watching the sun come up and saying gratitudes, if that's sacred to you, make time for that, do that. That's going to help you feel into a magic practice. For me personally, it's the coffee, it's the having gratitudes about the day. But sacred practice also looks like listening to that intuition when it calls me to light candles or pull out crystals to create a crystal grid. A lot of what's sacred to me is play. You know, it's no expectations, no judgment, and it's pulling out finger paints and stickers and crystals and just arranging and playing. You know, there's so much of life that calls for us to be adults and to be strong and to be in control and all business and everything else. And that's fine. That's great. There's sacred practices around that serious, but really what kind of gets me back into an intuitive, creative flow is allowing myself to play. So finding out what's sacred to you, making time and space for that, that's going to help build a daily witchcraft practice. And then on that, don't be afraid to experiment and play. You know, I wouldn't say study a new thing every single day, but at the same time, allow yourself to be called and drawn to different aspects of witchcraft. You know, learn what you can about it, experiment with it. You know, if you saw this cool full moon ritual practice on Instagram, look at it, write it down, see what calls you to it, and do some of that. You know, set a new moon intention if you want. See what happens for a moon cycle, or wake up early and greet the sun. You know, you won't know what's sacred to you. You won't know what's going to call to you. You won't know what's going to do reconnect that personal power until you do the things. And so I want to encourage you to don't be afraid to do the things. You know, I mean, you don't have to be loud about witchcraft in public if that's not your style, but you know, just recognizing patterns, personal power connection, and then just figuring out what is sacred to you and how you can bring that into a spiritual practice. And so that is most of my notes. We can certainly deep dive. I haven't seen any comments unless I'm just missing them. But overall, that is what I have. I think I'm going to deep dive into personal power connection next, as well as what else was on the poll. But I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or if you're watching a replay, let me know. Drop any below. I am more than happy to answer and discuss the things and, you know, help you figure out what your thing is. That's a lot of what my purpose is helping you figure out what your practice looks like, whether that's tarot, herbs, crystals, working with animal totems, anything of the sort. I am super glad to help you guys figure those things out. So I hope you have a good evening. That is my cat right behind me. Hi, buddy. Apparently he's been back there. So hope you guys have a great evening, and I will catch you guys later.